Most people have heard of the game rock paper scissors, also known as Rochambeau. It's the iconic argument settler, so you can leave the decision up to luck. In most games of rock paper scissors, two people say rock paper scissors shoot, then hold up one of three hand gestures, one to represent a rock, one to represent a sheet of paper, or one to represent a pair of scissors. Rock crushes scissors, but is covered by paper, paper covers rock, but is cut by scissors, and scissors cuts paper, but is crushed by rock. Ties usually result in a do-over. Overall, a very simple and accessible game. However, not as many people have heard of the game of chopsticks, also known as sticks. This game is decently well known, but not well known enough to have a completely agreed upon rule set. The way that me and my friends have been playing sticks goes as follows: each player starts with one stick in each hand. When it is a player's turn, they can attack one of the other player's hands, to add the amount of sticks that they have in the hand that they're attacking with, to the amount of sticks in the other player's hand that they're attacking. If any hand has 5 sticks, then that hand is out for the rest of the game. If any hand has more than 5 sticks, then subtract 5 from that amount, and continue with that amount of sticks. This is how me and my friends have played it for a while now. I've heard of many different versions of sticks, where there are different rules or mechanics. In my friend group's version, there is no splitting or attacking yourself. I've seen this game be played most commonly in groups of 2, but I've played a lot of 3-player games, and I find them fun. It makes the game more complicated and engaging. Both of these are decently well-known hand games, and I had the bright idea of combining them. And thus, the game of Stickshambo was created. Stickshambo starts just like a normal game of sticks, with each player having one stick in each hand. The game begins to differ from sticks when the first move is made, inevitably giving one player a hand with 2 sticks. The player with this hand can either keep their hand as is, or can transform it into a pair of scissors. Note that no transformations of sticks will use up the given player's turn, so when the player turns their sticks into scissors, they can still attack with their remaining sticks. Any hand that has Rochambeau pieces cannot attack or be attacked by sticks, except for one exception, but we'll get to that later. The game continues as normal, until one of the player's hands has exactly 5 sticks. The player with this hand has to choose between turning this hand into paper, or turning it into a rock. If the player turns their hand into a rock, they have to wait until their next turn to use it. Rock transformations are the only scenario where this rule applies. The rules with Rochambeau are the same. When it's your turn, you can use your Rochambeau piece to eliminate its corresponding Rochambeau piece. Whoever has the last living hand wins the game. That's the entire base game of Stickshambo, but there are some problems with it. For example, who wins this game that we've been watching for the past minute? Both sides have living hands, but neither side is able to interact with the other's living hands. This means that the game cannot end, so I guess it counts as a stalemate? Well, no, it doesn't, because that would be kind of boring. Plus, I've played the game enough to find out that most 2- and 3-player games end in stalemate, which is pretty disappointing for both parties. This is why I had the idea of adding another mechanic. If you ever encounter a stalemate, the first player to put up finger guns and say shoot will win the game through shootout. Then there's another rule that one of my friends thought of. Remember when I said that there was an exception to the rule that any hand that has Rochambeau pieces cannot attack or be attacked by sticks? Well, this is that exception. If you have a pair of scissors in one hand, and 1 to 4 sticks in the other hand, you can cut off one stick from your other hand, using up your turn in the process. If someone cuts their hand and they only have one stick on that hand, the player can choose to turn that hand into a rock or into paper. It has the same effect as that hand getting 5 sticks. However, you can only cut sticks, not Rochambeau pieces, so you can't cut a rock or a piece of paper to get 4 sticks back. Now, these added rules seem fine, but there is one fatal flaw with it. To see this, let's look at a 2-player game. The first player attacks one of the other player's hands. Then, the other player turns their hand with 2 sticks into scissors. Since this transformation doesn't take up their turn, they cut one stick off of their other hand, and since that hand has no sticks, it will turn into either a piece of paper, or a rock. It doesn't exactly matter which piece the second player chooses, because either way, the second player is unable to interact with the other player's hands, thus putting the game in a stalemate. Since the game is now in stalemate, either player can put up finger guns and say shoot. These two new rules can be abused to force every two-player game into stalemate instantly. Now, the logical option would be to scrap the second rule, since it's not a necessity, and it sort of sparks this entire exploiting of the rules. No. Not that. That's not something that is happening. Instead, me and one of my friends added another rule. We had two different ideas for this rule, but we couldn't decide on one, so we're leaving it up to whoever plays this to choose between these two options. The first option is to outright ban purposefully getting into a stalemate. This works similarly to how entering check in chess works. You can't make a move that gets you into stalemate on the next turn, you have to be forced into it in order for it to count. The second option is to have a minimum amount of turns for how long a game can last before being open to stalemate. Me and my friend agreed on 5 full rotations of the players before stalemate is available, but you can choose how long you want it to be. That's all for Stickshambo. Here's the full, formal rule set for the game if anybody's interested in playing the game. I honestly don't know who'd play this game now that I think about it, but I wanted to share it nonetheless. Hope you found this interesting, and here's the not good background music I made for this.